Okay. Welcome, everybody. Robin, Adrienne, Heather, Reginald, Safana. That's a cool name. Celeste. They're the early ones. They're the ones that get to be able to see that I'm drinking from my NASA cup. How's everybody doing? Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in just a minute. We have a bunch of folks coming in from all over the place. So welcome. Good deal. All right. So for those of you who are just showing up, here's the question of the day. Where are you from? Number one, and you're going to put it in the Q&A. We're going to do this a little different. You're going to put it in the Q&A. So the question is, I'm going to put the question in the Q&A. And the question is, where are you from? And what's your favorite TV show when you were a kid? Now, what's going to happen here is we're going to see the generational separations, Jamie Jackson. So what was yours, Jamie? What's your favorite TV show when you were a kid?
Probably, let's see, Three Stooges.
Three Stooges. Now you know what generation Jamie Jackson is from. Oh, Jeanette, Charlie's Angels.
Oh,
nice. That was a lot. That wasn't my favorite, but it was a good show for young boys. And I'm gonna leave it at that, Jeanette.
Yours is probably Bonanza.
Your Bonanza is another one. That's the one that we did this yesterday at a briefing. We had it all over the place. So Star Trek comes from Robert Moss. Fantastic. Andy Griffith. That was, and I'm assuming that's Andy Griffith, Reginald, not Andy Griffin. Michelle's got the Brady Bunch. She's from Maryland. Awesome. From Loveland, Colorado. Fraggle Rock. Man, that's a woo. That was one that has to dig back. You're in my generation, Tara. I know it. Mine is Speed Racer. So that's mine. So let us know who's your favorite TV show when you're a kid and where you're from. And then we'll get there. Who else is there? Yes, Star Trek, the original, James T. Kirk. That's right. Classic. So Robert, you'll appreciate this. I was not a Trekkie until my dad and I went to see the movie that I saw first was the second Star Trek, was Wrath of Khan. And here's what happened. We watched the movie. I came home and sat down. I was like, that was pretty cool. And Star Trek was on. And it was the original episode of Khan, and my head exploded. And that was it. I was a Trekkie after that. I may or may have not been to conventions, just saying. I leave that out there for everybody else to make determination. DuckTales from Regina. I don't even know what that is, Regina. I can't even tell you. All right, so we'll get started in just a minute. Always like to try to get some inside information on where everybody is and where you're headed, where you're from. Always fun. Still your favorite. Love it. Yep. Yeah, buddy. How about the new one? When what's his name? Cumberbatch, his name, said he was Khan. I was like, oh, that was great. It's still good. Both of them are good. You're all right. All right. Now we got to get back to business. All right. We'll get this cooking, Jamie. And but we appreciate you guys participating in that little bit of humor and getting our entree. We'll be talking about meeting the evolving federal workplace requirements. Nothing's changed over the past 2 years, right, Jamie?
Yep.
Not a thing. Not a thing has changed. All right. Well, we appreciate you guys joining us. With me, I have Jamie Jackson. He is the Vice President of Metro Office's Federal Division. Say hey, Jamie.
How you doing? Glad to be here.
Yep, it is good to be here. We want to welcome everybody. There's a ton of folks here at this interagency briefing. We've been kicking stuff back and forth with a couple of different folks today, and we appreciate you guys joining us today. It is, I can't call out everybody. There's a couple in there that was really interesting. The Institute of Museum and Library Services, did not know about those, been doing these a long time, been in the federal world, and the United States Access Board, both of those were new. So we appreciate you guys joining us. and deciding that this was worth the time. Hopefully we can make it worth your time. We're going to give you some introductions to Jamie and some briefing controls so that you guys can participate beyond just telling us what your favorite TV show is when you were a kid. We'll talk about federal initiatives that are going to be driving things and still drive things. Some of the challenges that we have post-pandemic, a lot of questions about that. And what that COVID impact has been and what it will be in the future. We'll be dialoguing with Q&A throughout this session, but we definitely want to make sure we include what you need answered. And if we don't know the answers, what are we going to do, Jamie?
We'll get them.
We'll get them for you. We'll put you in touch with somebody that does know. So we'll talk about recommended action steps, and there's some unique things about this session that we want to get some of your feedback from too. This will be the best briefing ever, Jamie. Phyllis says it lays out a sensible plan for flexible workspace options. Sensible, has to be sensible. Michael from HRSA says hear about other operating divisions and how they are handling the new workplace scenarios. We will do some of that today. Tony, leave with all questions answered. Jamie, all the questions have to be answered. And not only that, Ed says there have to be factual. There have to be factual information. What do you think about that, Jamie? You think you can do that? All the questions.
I agree, yes.
Yeah. It will always be factual, but they may not be all of them. Carrie from DHS. That's so funny. When you put in this, it's IHS, not his. I can improve the workplace. That's autocorrect for you. I can improve workplace capabilities in a cost-efficient manner. Love it. We'll be talking about that. Safana, that, like I said, that's the coolest name of the place. USPTO. What is the general trend? RE space post-pandemic. Both, and that goes to the next one. I gain perspective of how other bureaus are reaching the new work climate post-pandemic. A lot of that from Robert. And David, discuss VPN security and ways to speed up VPN transmission. David, I'm not sure we're going into that right now, but we will figure out. I know one of the ways is not doing it from home. That's the first one. And then Terrence, examples and polls. We will be doing both of those. So we will meet that goal for sure for Terrence. And Lawrence from C. Sosa, a diagram of the process will be given out. We will be doing that as well. So please address this. Deborah from DOI, ideal workplace configuration for hoteling. We'll talk a little bit about hoteling today. Stephanie from FMC, is there any information on how agencies decreases the footprint will affect multi-year contracts already been signed? That is a wild one. There's a lot baked into that in there, Jamie, about multi-year contracts that have already been signed. Yes, we will talk about those as well. Minion from NASA, Minion, there you go. Got your mug. Enable agencies to hire the best talent for the job, include diversity, equity, inclusion, no matter how they prefer to work. That is something that Chuck Hardy's been talking about for a while, right? Right, Jamie?
Yep.
And Darlene, how can agencies be more supportive of flexible workspace requirements? Love that idea. We want to pass this on as well. Linda from EPA, is this anticipated to be rolled out across all federal agencies? That's a great question. We're working towards that exactly to be able to get you there. And James from Department of Justice, is there a method where agencies can scale up and down usage and still have dedicated space? That is a problem for a lot of agencies because you cannot share agency space with just anybody, right? And commercial companies. Fantastic. That is awesome. We'll do our best to answer all of those, won't we, Jamie?
Yep.
All right, so you will get the session docs. Terry will be posting those in right this minute, where you have access to the briefing presentation, all the co-working contracts and links, the FEMA white paper that we're going to be reviewing in a little bit. And before we start, I'm going to do this disclaimer that GSA makes us do, believe it or not, Jamie Jackson. This event is not affiliated or endorsed by GSA or any agency. It's provided you to informational purposes only, if I could talk. And engagement by you, engagement government by personnel, is not an indication or endorsement to commitment to purchase from any vendor, including you. Sorry, Jamie, they're not obligated to do anything. And that's what enables us to have dialogue. We did this, I don't know, it was probably 8 or 9 years ago, and with GSA, and that's what we have. So briefing controls. If you don't know how Zoom works, not sure how that could possibly be, but if this is your first time, you can go up to the top and you can do side-by-side mode, and you can make it bigger or smaller or however you would like to see it. And you can participate throughout this. You can chat, you can raise your hand, you can send questions, and we'll do our best to answer those. And if you do that, do us a favor and put the questions in the Q&A. That way we can dialogue on those. If you want to share something else, all the docs are going to be in the chat. If there's anything else you'd like to share, put it there. And if there's something you don't want to share with everybody and you want to keep it under the radar, send it to jjackson@metrooffice.com and it will get to him. And that's 1 O in Metro Office. And speaking of polls, Terrence was asking about this. There is not a poll here. The polls are not showing up. So we're gonna fix that in just a minute while Jamie is cooking. But tell us why you decided to join us today. Is it because you're involved in the federal space requirements? Are you in HR? Let us know who you are, and you put that in the chat, and we'll make sure we'll incorporate that. But tell us why you're here today, and while you're doing that, Jamie, you're going to start talking about Metro Office. I'm going to make sure I figure out what the answer is with these polls.
Well, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate it and hope to make this hour very substantive for you. Who we are is Metro Office is a woman-owned company. We've been in business for over 32 years in the Washington metropolitan area. We run about 8 business centers, but about 10 years ago, we decided to create a federal division. And over the last 10 years, we've done about $53 million in federal contracts for flexible workplace as a service, which we're going to discuss today. In addition, our partner is Court, and Court is the largest rental furniture company in the world. They've been with the GSA schedule for 25 years, and they're a part of Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway suite of companies. So let me tell you why we're here. Next slide. Why we're here.
Jamie. I was half distracted. Give me 1 second to get the rest of this back up here, and I'm gonna do my best. There you go. So I'm gonna tell you why we're here. Tell us why we're here. Flexible workspace is why we're here.
So why a flexible workspace? Well, we pulled out a couple of interesting quotes here. C.B. Richard Ellis, in their interview with commercial clients, the latter part of 2021, came with this statement: the need for agility has never been greater as workforce behaviors have been transformed during the pandemic and likely will never return to pre-pandemic norms. In other words, commercial businesses want to have agility in their workspace capability. At the same time, a memo went out from the GSA, from OPM, and et cetera, that said every agency's long-term post-reentry workplace strategy should be informed by lessons learned during the pandemic and should provide as much flexibility as possible. So the government wants to get into as much flexibility in their workspace capability as possible. So that's why we're here, because it's one of the most important things being discussed in the marketplace. So why would agencies need flexibility? Well, here's just a smattering of issues that cause agencies to need flexibility. One would be that their mission changes over a period of time. It used to be agencies' missions stayed the same. Now it doesn't. Every few years, there's something different that they have to adjust to. You need to hire new talent. 30% of the government workforce is going to be retiring in the next 5 years. So you got to have the capability to hire new talent and the way the new talent wants to work. Swing space for expansion, reduction, or move to a different location. Many agencies are going to be trying to downsize. They're going to need swing space to get there. You want to create a project or a task force and taking people from different divisions and need a space for them to work for only 2 or 3 years. Reduction of real estate costs. It's going to be a very big initiative of the federal government.
Yes, sir.
Diversify your real estate assets. You'll have some in long-term, some in flexible space, just like a bond portfolio. And employee retention. In order to keep the best that you have, they want a different way to work. So all that adds up. The flexibility is needed by these agencies in their workspace portfolio.
And some of that is being handled and being addressed by Chuck Hardy and his group. And he's been talking about this for years. I know it because we met with him, right? Right, Jamie?
Many times, yes.
Many times. So we've been talking about this for years, and COVID came along and kind of forced us into it, right? So all the things that he's talking about, past initiatives allow the government to operate, right? If telework was mandated, the distributed workforce really worked. It actually did work. You could distribute the workforce, and there's a lot of agencies that were fighting it before, and now it works. And guess what about the reducing its footprint? The agencies were already working on that. As we know, there were mandates that were driven down, and there are several different types of real estate solutions and workplace designs are going to be needed, right, Jamie? That's everything that he's been talking about for years.
And that's what we're going to talk about today, different types of real estate solutions and workspace designs.
And you're going to explain this, you're going to do some explaining, speaking of people with their favorite TV shows. I Love Lucy. You got some
Stevie Richard Ellis coined this phrase in their latest research paper that they did on understanding flexibility in the marketplace. And I recommend everybody to read it. But this is exactly what we've been talking about, core plus flex. Core is the emerging strategy is that you would offer a way to seamlessly integrate your traditional lease space, 10-year GSA space, and flexible office agreements in their portfolio that they need for a shorter period of time. Core plus flex. And we're going to define that for you today. In their latest research paper that I was just describing, they put a case study in there, which is at the heart of what we're talking about. And they quoted a head of real estate for a major government contracting company. And they said the flexibility added one, speed to market. In other words, it enabled them to get a group up and running quickly so they can start working on the project or whatever it is they need. That it reduces the demand on internal capital resources. You don't have to go to your agency for any capital to do this. We put up the capital and the ability to grow or reduce our footprint. And we're going to show you solutions where you can go up and you're going to go down in the number of people. And they stated that this example, that this major government contractor reduced their cost of real estate by 15% by using core plus flex. Now that was in the C.B. Richard Ellis's paper. Now let's show you what we mean core plus flex. Let's try to define it. I love this picture that JLL, Jones Lang LaSalle, put in a paper that they put out in 2020. And it basically shows workspace liquidity or different types that you can build into your portfolio. First, on the left-hand side is traditional space, long-term space with limited flexibility. That's your core. You will always have a need for core. So the GSA will do your long-term real estate needs that you have. But on the right-hand side, it is the three most talked about solutions for liquidity, for flexibility. To the far right, work from home. And as Chuck Hardy was quoted a while ago, the government's been working from home for several years and it's worked. So that is a solution that will continue to be used in the government workspace. Also going along with that is co-working memberships, where you can have a membership and be able to go and use a co-working facility, or workplace on demand, where you can get individual desks for a week or an hour or a day or whatever you sign up for. Those two solutions are being resolved by the GSA IDIQ that they announced the latter part of last year. And if you don't have any information on the GSA IDIQ, we'd be happy to provide it to you. But the other two solutions in this workspace liquidity picture is what we want to show you today that most people are not aware of. And that's, can you have agency dedicated space where somebody literally bills out for you exactly what you need for exactly the term that you need? And that's what we're going to discuss today. And that meets what Chuck Hardy said: there will be different types of real estate solutions and workspace designs. This is one of them that is new to the government. We've been doing it for 10 years, but many agencies have not been using it. So this whole picture is core plus flex. Well, what is our solution? Our flexible workspace as a service is where a solution where we provide an agency with turnkey facilities, including furniture, utilities, communications, IT services, all related infrastructure, and full-time support staff under a services contract. So there's only one contract, and it's a services contract. And they can be scalable and applicable on 1 to 5 year term. That's our solution. That fits in that two types of solutions that was on that chart that I showed you a while ago.
And this isn't like pie in the sky stuff that you just developed. This is stuff that you've been running with for what, 10, 15 years?
We've done it for last 10 years and 53 million in government contracts. And we can show you all of that and our ratings and all that for anyone that wants to ask. But it is a solution that the government can use.
And up until pre-COVID, it was like, well, it'll be used in outliers, right? But now, post-COVID, we're looking at it as the government is looking, and different agencies are asking the same question because they can't be in the same place as the folks.
And we could build out this facility multi-agencies. That's a good point.
Yeah,
it can be multi-agencies. But with our partner Court and their furniture as a service, where they will come in and change the furniture out to meet whatever is a change of the client, that gives us unlimited scalability up and down, as somebody was asking. We can reconfigure the adjustments. I'm going to show you an example in a minute where we worked with the VA and we literally had to change out. They had 3 divisions, then 4 divisions, then 5 divisions. We had to keep changing the configuration of the furniture, and we do it in a rapid response time. So Metro plus Court, we give you continuous flexibility in a turnkey facility. Now, let me give you a couple of examples of how we've done this, and this is just a few. FEMA came to us in New Jersey, and they had been trying to they were losing their lease, and the GSA had been trying to find them a short-term solution, and they couldn't find it. In 30 days from the time of the contract, we had them up and running in an as-is space for 240 people. And we had some very, very specific requirements that they put on us. Like they had to be able to carry guns in this facility, and they had to have the ability to have people scanned. We go into a solution. The point is that we worked with FEMA and got them up and running in 30 days. We ran it for 2 years and 2 months, And this was a flex for FEMA, and they moved to a core. FEMA merged the New York operation and New Jersey operation into one long-term real estate transaction, which they call core of the Northeast. So they went from flex to core. Now, FEMA was so pleased with this that they wrote a white paper, and we are providing you that white paper so you can see from their perspective the value that this solution gave to FEMA.
And that wasn't an easy thing to accomplish, because you had to meet certain requirements for GSA, right? Because in order for the lease to work and for them to bless it, you had to meet, what is it called when you meet the reps? And
we met all of the requirements that they normally ask a landlord to provide, all the reps and warrants we provided. And this transaction, as you said, Dave, this transaction actually went through the GSA, and they were very pleased.
Yep. And it's amazing to read that white paper, because when you look at they did the cost benefit analysis on the flexible versus doing the long-term lease as well, didn't they? So, and then
we'll get them a copy of this white paper, and it's good to read because it's in FEMA's language and it's what they evaluated.
Yep. Yeah, it's not our case study. It's FEMA's case study, right? So there you go. All right, so let's talk about the one with the VA, because this one started out as a very, what was it, 18 months or so was the original?
This contract, the need was they wanted to form two new divisions, TAC, which is a contracts division, and OINT, a technology division. And they needed a space to get this started. This is in New Jersey. And so we signed a 18-month contract with 2 3-month options and started over 10 years ago with the VA. And over the last 10 years in New Jersey, we have done 4 contracts with options, and we have taken them from the start to where they are today with almost 300 people. We provided swing space along the way. We were scalability. We would add 25 seats, reduce 25 seats. We reconfigured multiple times the way they wanted the furniture configured and the type of furniture, because of the way they kept restructuring the division and adding people to different parts of the division. And at the end of the contract, here's another example. They went from flex to core. They now have signed a GSA lease over 10 years in the exact same building where we had them and we were running it for them in that space. So it's another great example of flexibility to core. We had them up and running in about 90 days. And as I said, it went 10 years, and we can deliver to you their evaluations of us. We took a few quotes from John Adamitis, who is the contracting officer the entire 10 years, of what he said in the last evaluation. But basically, he's saying that our solution worked for exactly what they wanted. And we can arrange for you to talk to Mr. Adamitis and get their perspective on how this solution worked for them. This was an ideal solution for the VA. It was the flex part of their operation, and now it's gone into the core part of their operation.
And real quick, Christine is asking a question. Has this ever been done to benefit an organization who already leases a building under their own organization to use? Very similar to what we're just talking about right here. For example, the Patient Account Center leases a building from the VA hospital. Now that the majority of employees are telework, all that space is not needed. How would this process benefit in this type of situation? Exactly that. So what you would want to do is you want to talk with Jamie and you would take a look at what looks like right now, and we're talking about this with Chuck as well, is either retooling what you have in place to be more beneficial, and or taking that, if that's at the end of the lease term, is looking at how you can turn this into a flexible workspace condition where you can scale up, scale down. And by the way, what do you mean by scale up and scale down, Jamie? Does that mean when, if they have to change, we add 25 people, what does that do to the cost structure? Or if they go away, does it also goes up and down because you're paying per seat, right?
That's right. And it gives them the ability, if they're hiring people, we can quickly set them up and not go through a normal government process in order to get more seats or more different types of desks. We've had clients that, they needed 14 offices, and then they come to us and tell us, we want to put 2 desks in an office, or we need X number of conference rooms. We want you to be able to convert a conference room to where we can have a training room, etc. It's flexibility on what they need, because their needs may change during the term of the contract.
And Patrick is right. All VA entities should first speak with the Office of Real Property. But I will say this, not all of the folks that are responsible for the Office of Real Property even know that this exists. And that's why we're putting it out there, that VA's using it. They've used it. We can connect you with John Adamitis, and he can tell you how it went down, because it didn't come out the same way that you would normally orchestrate a real estate transaction, right, Jamie? There is not a transactional way to do this without, and that's one of the problems.
But now they have a history, and we've done it on a number of VA cases. We just highlighted this one. We've done other VAs that they can talk to.
That's right. And so I agree with you, Patrick. You definitely want to speak to the Office of Real Property. However, make sure that the Office of Real Property that you're talking to is also talking to the leadership in the VA and us, so that we can educate them as well. Trust me, they don't know what it is. In fact, this is exactly why it's important to do that, Patrick, is first, you got to understand the agency's need. Then guess what? This has to be done through an unsolicited proposal, because there is no other mechanism to purchase. You do the analysis of the proposal, you can do a sole source justification, and then the approval of the proposal comes. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts. And if you're not familiar with managing the unsolicited proposal process, you're going to want some help from folks like John Adamitis and other VA folks that have done it in the past, as well as FEMA folks, because this is not your typical, okay, there's an IDIQ to buy off of. Doesn't exist. It took GSA, what was it, 5 years to do the other IDIQ that just came out last year, Jamie?
Yeah, and we're hoping that GSA will eventually have a schedule for real estate transactions 5 years or less, which is flexible workspace. And they certainly have seen the value of what we bring.
Yep, and that's what we're working on. But today, and by the very fact that you're here today, and by the very fact that if you define that you need something, if you need something that's a year or less, that already exists, right, Jamie? That's in the GSA IDIQ as it exists. And the hoteling kind of, that's the new hoteling model for office space, right? So, but what we're talking about is that gap between 1 and 5 years, where you may not know, your agency may not know that you don't want to take the dive into a multi-year or 10-year lease, because you don't know what your status is right now. And what Jamie is talking about and can repeat, this has been repeated multiple times, short timelines, right? You might have an expiring lease and you got to move. What are you going to do? GSA takes sometimes years to be able to execute those leases. There's nothing wrong with those leases. The core is never going to change, right, Jamie? To your point, the core is never going to change. So, and this is where we get back to this, where 30% of all office space is going to be consumed by flexibly by 2030. That's the JLL piece that we were looking at before, right?
Yeah. So let's just go through this one more time, because this is the meat of our presentation today. going forward, you are going to have the capability to have workspace liquidity. You're going to have on the left-hand side, traditional long-term space. That's the core of your agency's needs. On the right-hand side, you will have work from home. That's tremendous flexibility. In addition to that, on the right-hand side, the IDIQ provides agencies with the ability to have co-working memberships and approved co-working facilities, and the ability to get an office or a workspace or a meeting room on demand. What we're telling you is there is another option of flexibility, which is for short to medium term, 1 to 5 years, where we come in and build out a facility for you and run it for you for the exact time that you need it, then you walk out. And it has been done in the government. We've done 53 million of it. And so what you're going to find going forward is a combination of core plus flex. And when you get to flex, you can choose or you can actually combine a number of these opportunities. And as we said earlier, we're prepared to build turnkey workspace multi-agency. If some of the agencies want to close down their operation to move into one decreased facility, that is an option that you can look at. And just as Chuck Hardy said, you're going to have different workspace opportunities going forward.
And the ability to flex within that space, right? So you might only need 10 or 12 seats right now, but the group is 45 or 50 and one goes up by 10 or 12 and the other one goes down by 3 and the other one goes up by 40. That is on you to handle, right, Jamie?
That's correct. That's correct.
Or the vendor, whatever. This is going to be something moving forward. And one of the things we're doing is we're helping to push this out as something that has been done, right? There's a bunch of things that are out there that are done in commercial space that'll never work in the federal government. It'll never work. But these have been done both with FEMA and VA, interestingly enough, in Eatontown, New Jersey, right? Both of those, right?
Yeah.
So, but they don't have to be. You've done it here in DC. You've done it in Frederick for VA. You've done it in multiple places. This isn't like brand new.
And Dave, let me say that if anybody needs us to talk to people within your agency to further explain these opportunities, we'd be more than happy to do so.
Yep. And guess what Christina says? Right. Getting information to the people who are responsible to do these things is the hardest part. You are correct. And we're all in the same boat, right? We're all trying to get the information to the key decision makers, and judging by where they are in it, because some of this can be driven by HR because of the new, guess what? People don't want to work the same way anymore, Jamie.
Right.
And if they're not going to want to work the same way, that's driven through HR. And then you have other things that are driven by Congress. The whole situation with you and the VA was driven because Congress said, boom, you're going to solve this problem. And it's like, okay, well, you can't sneeze room for 250 people. You have, and so you had to come along and assist with that, right? And because you've been doing this for years on the right-hand side with you've been doing the co-working space and workspace on demand for years. This other part that for the turnkey space and short-term workspace, that's where you've been doing almost exclusive with the government, right?
Totally with the government. Yeah.
Totally with the government. So it was born out of necessity. It wasn't born because you guys decided to create it. You created this for government agencies like FEMA and VA is how that worked. And Christopher has something here. He says, workspace as a service is a data challenge, but there is use of space, but no real property interest since it's a service. Correct. Question, is it always brokered through GSA, right? No, it's not always brokered through GSA, because it is done in in coordination, at least you've done it in coordination with GSA, but the VA was actually done outside of GSA to start. Isn't that right?
It started as an IDIQ contract, correct? And later on, it went to a sole source justification concepts.
Right. And that was through VA directly, correct?
Through VA directly, not through the GSA. The only one we've done through the GSA is the FEMA deal.
Is the FEMA deal. Right. So again, and that's what makes it challenging, Christopher. But to your point, the data and the IT, this is where it gets very interesting, because you actually handle all the IT infrastructure for the location as well, right, Jamie?
Yeah, but all we do is give them a VPN, give them access to their systems. We don't want to have anything to do with their systems, and we can run the Wi-Fi, etc., within the facility for their guests, etc. So we keep them connected, shall we say?
Gotcha. So very, very good. So we're going to get a recap, do this quick recap, and we'll get to a couple
All right,
more
here's
questions.
just a quick recap of our solution. We have past federal experience, and we're more than happy to share that with you. It's a turnkey solution, so you don't have to do anything. We provide the furniture, the equipment, etc. We allow you for complete flexibility during the term of the agreement. We'll respond very quickly. It's on a services contract. So you only have a services contract with us. There's no lease, and you have a single vendor. It's one throat to choke. All you got to do is call us, deal with us to get everything fixed during the term of the transaction.
And if there's anybody here that understands that, that single throat to choke, right? Where, hey, we want to add an employee, right? First of all, I guarantee you that Jamie can turn it up faster than you can hire an employee. That's the first part. The second part is when this happens, you don't have to worry about the coordination of all the rest of the pieces, whether it's furniture and then computer, the connectivity for the computers, all the rest of that stuff, all that's handled at the facility level, and that gets handed off. It's very difficult if you've never seen it in operation to know the impact of that. In fact, when the VA got to the place, about 7 years into that contract, it starts to create legal problems for VA, because you now have a contract that's been running for 7 years. It was only designed for 18 months, right? Right, Jamie?
Well, and that's why eventually after 10 years, and they got exactly to the point where they became core, they went from flex to core, and it is a 10-year deal. Every deal we've done has gone from flex to core because it makes sense. But going forward, it may be that flex is just for a period of time. You're working on a project or whatever. You don't need to go buy furniture and lease space and all that. Do it on a turnkey facility, and at the end of 3 years or 5 years or whatever, walk away. So we wanted you to understand all of the options that you're going to be able to do to meet the flexibility piece of core plus flexibility.
Yep. And that gets us to this. We have the GSA IDIQ for less than 1 year. So this is the only solution that we've seen out. And it's going to require some dialogue and some work together to be able to facilitate, because there isn't a current contract vehicle to do it. However, we do have the roadmap, and somebody was asking for that. Can you give us examples of the roadmap? We have those. The biggest thing is get in touch. If you're interested in continuing the conversation, we'll talk about that in just a minute, but engage with the folks that have done it. We can help you connect that, and then schedule the needs assessment. And it does, how much does it cost to talk to you about the need, Jamie?
Just call me.
It's nothing. And then being able to work that through procurement. Now, we all know that unsolicited proposals are not your typical. So, but because it's been done multiple times, we can help you, or somebody within the VA or FEMA or somebody else that have done this within the organization could do that. And again, from the HR side of things, survey your employees, start to understand what they're looking for. Because if you take a look at the type of places that Jamie has, and you can come visit one of the places down in DC or Virginia, right? You can stop by and pop in and see the kind of place that Jamie runs, right? Right, Jamie,
Sure.
at Metro?
Sure.
Yeah, so you can do that. So the question is, how can we assist your agency in meeting the new workspace needs? And the way we're going to do that, we'll open it up. How can we do that? I know, Christopher, did we answer that question for you about whether it's brokered always through GSA? It's not. That's the first part. But you have mentioned a data challenge. What's your thought on a data challenge? What does that mean to you? And if, in fact, I'm going to see if I can find you, and maybe we can unmute you. Do you have the capacity to be unmutified, Christopher? Hang on a second. I'm going to say allow to talk. You there, Christopher? I don't know if he's got.
How about this?
Oh, there we go. Christopher, go ahead.
Yeah, so, we typically track where there's a real property interest, right? Most of our stuff trends in, it's a lease, right? For the most part, or an occupancy agreement. But this is a horse of a different color. And, from the appropriator side and the public side, we've gone through challenges over the past few years, freeze the footprint, reduce the footprint. Office space is the monster that we need to tamp down. And hey, look, from a user standpoint, this is great, right? Super flexible, be able to scale, reduce the contracting nonsense. It's just like it is in private sector, right?
Yes.
And so it works great. The challenge on our side is to say, okay, well, how do we track this? Where is it? I mean, when it starts to be, who's going to manage the data side of it when it gets bigger, smaller, blah, 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 and since it's not a lease, it's not going through the sort of traditional controls. And so, that's our challenge, right? I mean, it seems like this thing meets the needs for things if it's shifting or growing or needs to adapt. But at the same time, we need to be classing office space just like we do with our leased and GSA space.
Positively.
What do we have? And so, it's not like it's different, but I just want to, raise the challenge. Frankly, it would be easier to do business with this through a GSA occupancy agreement, but I don't think GSA wants to be, move this quickly, big, small, grow, shrink, and I don't think anybody wants to really, have that, that ship that rocks back and forth. You get seasick with
Yep.
it, with the around, right? But I just wanted to flag the data challenge on the government data side, where we need to be able to manage it. It's not your problem. It's just something we need to figure out.
You're absolutely right, and there's always going to be nuances with every agency and the division within the agency as to how to meet that challenge. I really highly encourage you, if you would, to take a look at the FEMA white paper, because it details some of the challenge and how they dealt with the challenges. Not that it's going to be exactly the same for you, but at least other folks have addressed some of the components of that challenge, and come up with what the answers could be, because that's what this is all about. It's not hey, there's no utopias, right? There's no way to bippity boppity boo this thing either, right?
Exactly. So I'll take a look at that. Is it included in the materials?
Yeah, it's in the materials, and in fact, Terry, if you can pop that in again, where to grab those materials, it'll be in there.
Great. Hey, thanks.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. Any other questions? I know, Christina, you're talking about getting the information to the people responsible. Always a challenge. That is definitely a huge issue. Terry did put that in there with all the handouts. You can gain access to that. If you're having any trouble grabbing those, let us know, and we'll make sure you get those. And we are running long, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure folks can get out of here. Love the dialogue though. Appreciate all of that. You will get a recap email next week. It is Thursday, so it gives us a little time to be able to create that. The end of the day, you'll get an immediate recap, but you'll get a finalized video with a link to the video and briefing presentation. The FEMA white paper is included in that, as well as all the supporting documents that most of the folks in the real estate and or in we're talking about flexible workspace needs. But we will also give you an opportunity to schedule time with Jamie. As I mentioned, how much does it cost, Jamie, to talk with you?
Just call me.
And then cost a thing. And Christina says we're entertaining, so we're here all week. All right. Oh, there you go. God bless me. We're not here all week. Right. But we do appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you so much.
Thanks to everybody for joining. And if we can assist you, please reach out.
Yep. And there's Jamie Jackson, Jay Jackson, and Metro Office with 1 O in there, metrooffice.com. And that's your direct number. Do you answer that phone, Jamie?
I do.
You do. Fantastic. Awesome. Terrence, you're welcome. Appreciate that. I cannot even tell you what that E is. Okay, Tara, you're welcome from both of us, right, Jamie? Tara's welcome.
Yep.
Robert, you're welcome. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you next time. Let us know if there's anything else we can do for you on any front. All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys.